All right, so we are joined from our nation's capital on the campus of the beautiful Howard University by swimming and tennis coach Nic Askew, coach of the only HBCU swim team in the United States, the only all-black swim team in the United States, been featured on the cover of Sports Illustrated, ABC News, ESPN, you name it. Just so cool, all the coverage he's gotten, and not only getting coverage as the only black swim team, but winning some championships. So thank you so much for joining us as we wrap up Black History Month. And I've got a room full here with me at Velma Jackson High School, recording this for all of our friends in Madison County schools: Madison Central High School, Ridgeland High School, Germantown High School, the Academic Options Center, and our YouTube channel. So we really, again, appreciate you taking some time for us today.
Greg, it's a pleasure to be here, man. I'm glad that we got a chance to connect, and I'm excited.
Now, before we get into all that you do at Howard, you're originally from Kinston, North Carolina,
Yep.
and you went to Howard to be a swimmer. So just talk about, coming up in North Carolina and going to an HBCU like Howard, and being a Division I athlete.
Yeah, I mean, my journey is actually really blessed, to be perfectly honest with you. I grew up in a really small town. Population was like one stoplight big, and it was exciting to have the opportunity to grow up in a community like that. We everybody looked out for each other. Everybody was in everybody's business. So if you were up to no good, then you definitely got to talk to all the way home from school, from every corner, that you pass by with the parents and things and folks that were looking out for you. My mom and dad were extremely hard workers. They were up before the sun, and they didn't come in until late in the evening. So being a family with three boys, sports and activities was really important in our household, because my parents knew that between the three of us, we were going to tear the house up if they didn't keep us busy. So after our homework was done, we were allowed to go to the park, and hang out there and go to our different activities, whether it was basketball or football or baseball or track, swimming or tennis, or just exploring. It was really cool. My two older brothers were also athletes. They were a good number of years older than me. They hate when I tell them that, or remind them of the fact. They were excellent role models. I followed behind their footsteps for a long time, because they also provided care and for me in the after school hours. So they would go to work, and we were fortunate to live around a community center, and they worked as lifeguards there. And so it was natural for me to go to the pool and just kind of hang around the pool and splash around a little bit. And finally one day, my middle brother, he was kind of tough on me. He was tired of me just kind of hanging around the pool deck, and somehow I ended up in the middle of the deep end, and I had to figure out, okay, am I going to sink or am I going to swim? So thankfully I swam, and we didn't tell mom about that until a good 10, 15 years later, because she would have killed both of us. And that was the start of my swimming journey, and that's what got me into the pool more, because it just was like, okay, well, I can do this, and it was actually kind of fun. So let me go ahead and join the swim team in my neighborhood. And I also grew up playing tennis as my second sport, and that was really cool to have the opportunity to go from the swimming pool right to the tennis courts pretty much every single day. Because again, it was tough to go home with my parents being out, and making sure that we stayed out as much as possible so we didn't tear up the house. And then the journey took me to being able to have the opportunity to think about college. My two older brothers attended and graduated from Howard, so that was a natural, one to list on my college choices. And I knew I wanted to swim and compete for a Division I HBCU growing up. That was just really important to me, because in the swimming world and even in the tennis world, minorities are heavily underrepresented. It's a predominantly white Olympic sports in both swimming and tennis, most especially in swimming and diving. Only 1.2 to 1.5% of the population in swimming and diving that is Black or of color. So, I knew that I wanted to go into an environment that was different than the one that I grew up in, and see if that was going to be a good place for me. And it turned out to be a great place, Howard at Howard University is the mecca for higher education and Black excellence. And for once in my life, not feel like the only one,
Yeah.
in it, in that space in particular, was really fulfilling for me, and it helped drive me that much more to be surrounded by peers that had the same ambitions and values and experiences that I grew up with. So also got an opportunity to play tennis all 4 years. So I played two sports at the Division I level all 4 years of my collegiate career, and it worked out pretty okay.
Yeah, and at Howard University, you could just run down the list of famous alums that have gone to Howard. But even being at HBCU, whether you go to HBCU or not, we have some students here with me right now that have already signed letters of intent to play various sports on the collegiate level. And I think it's important for them to realize, no matter what sport you play, if you're playing a college sport, you have to be a student first. So, and I know you instill this in your team. So talk about the requirements of somebody that may be a Division I, Division II JUCO athlete, but also having to stay on top of your schoolwork as well, because it really is a big challenge in time management.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, regardless of what institution you choose to go to, you want to be comfortable. It needs to be an environment and a space that you're going to feel comfortable, because there are going to be challenges, and academics is absolutely one of those things that can be a challenge if your priorities aren't on straight. You're going to college, number one, to get a great education, because at the end of the day, you can't play sports forever. And there's a very, very, very small percentage who actually can make and sustain a living because of athletics. So being able to get a great education at an institution should be the number one priority. It is for us in our program. As I go around recruiting, we don't even start conversations until I know what your grades look like. We don't even start conversations until I know that you can be, one, accepted into the institution, and two, that you have a track record of success and hard work to be able to sustain the rigors of a college, course load. And it's not easy. I don't sugarcoat it whatsoever. You have to keep those priorities in check, because there are a lot of things that you're going to be exposed to in the college world, that you could very easily fall off track. And because you're in sport, you should understand that it is competitive. So you have to also compete with your academics, and you've got to compete with your athletics to be able to retain your spot. Because college coaches and college programs, if you're underperforming in any measure, that gives them an opportunity to say you're not right for this program. And we've had to do that in our program, and it hurts, it stings, because we, as much as we've liked an athlete that's been a part of our program, if they're underperforming academically, then it affects the entire team, and it affects a lot of the things that the team can continue to progress with. The NCAA has, if you have a violation at NCAA with your APR, which is called academics performance rating, you could likely lose practice time. You could likely lose the opportunity to go to conference championships and beyond. So we don't want those type of issues whatsoever. So you have to sustain a certain level. So academics is absolutely something that we stress in our program, and I know that it's highly stressed at all other programs as well. Some of the biggest things that are helpful are, number one, is time management. Understanding that you've got to prioritize your calendar day in and day out throughout the week, of when are your classes, when are your training sessions, when are you going to study, when are you going to eat, when are you going to have some downtime, because that's just as important as being able to disconnect from all the stressors, right, that go on in the college day, and be able to just take some downtime just to relax. And then you've got to have a good bedtime routine. College students don't typically, normal college students or general college students, they don't usually go to bed, at 10 p.m. And they don't usually wake up at 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. And college student athletes have to have a much tougher, much more disciplined schedule, because you need that recovery time from being able to perform at training and then in competitions and being on the road and things like that. The second thing, we say this all the time in our program: closed mouths don't get fed. If you need help, you got to ask for help. There's likely not going to be anyone there to hold your hand, to make sure they're checking in and checking up and seeing that you do every single thing that you're supposed to do anyway. So when you start to feel uncomfortable, when you start to feel, you know what, this course is getting difficult, your job is to go and find your resources. And
Yep.
college programs, athletic programs such as ours, we have a lot of academic reinforcement programs and resources in tutors and academic advisors and counselors, etc. So, but we don't know that you need help unless you've shown us or told us that you
Yeah.
need help. Typically, we hate to find out that you needed help as a past tense, like, oh my gosh, you failed this course. That's too late in the game because there's nothing we can do about that. But if you let us know ahead of time, hey, I didn't do so well in that last quiz, I think I'm going to need a tutor to make sure that this test or this quiz that's coming up or this project or this paper that's coming up, I do even better, then we can definitely help with those things. So those are the two biggest things: time management and making sure that you're asking for help before it's too late.
Absolutely. Now, I saw you on a news interview, and I thought this was a great point, especially with it being Black History Month, is more important than ever. Swimming, at least, and I'm not big on offering opinions with my guests, but at least in my opinion, swimming may have been the number one sport in America affected by segregation, because when we did have the integration, especially in the South, these pools that were open to the public closed down. The whites moved to the country clubs. Blacks did not have access to adequate pool facilities. So they were kind of shut out of the sport of swimming. And then that also, on top of that, and more seriousness, hurt water safety. The disproportionate amount of drowning cases were minority individuals. So you guys have really pushed the envelope. Not only are you the hottest ticket in the DMV, we got to find a clip. You got the live DJ, and it's like a party atmosphere at your meets. It wasn't until 2016 when Simone Manuel won the gold medal in the Rio Olympics that we really saw that Black athletes were getting more involved in swimming. So you've made it your mission to not only win championships, but to really diversify a sport that was in desperate need for it.
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head. Unfortunately, as a country, we've got a very ugly history with water spaces, with aquatic spaces, and integration definitely had an effect. And unfortunately, a lot of the effects were just that they were negative as well, because there were already a limited amount of African Americans that swam and even swam at a competitive level. But with integration now, we saw a direct negative effect with the HBCUs, because now where a Black swimmer or even diver now has the opportunity to go to other schools, any school, which is a great thing, it diminished the amount of people who were actually attending HBCUs and competed. So you started to see a lot of the HBCUs cancel their programs because they just didn't have the numbers to sustain it. You also had that mindset in a lot of Black people that Blacks don't swim, or can't swim. So that negatively affected. And we go even farther back to the transatlantic slave trade, when Africans were enslaved and brought to this new country, and the knowing how to swim and then being broken from the ability to access water spaces, because water spaces were seen as a means of escape. And of course, during that time, if you try to escape as an enslaved person, the slave owner was going to punish you severely. So that cycle was now broken within the culture. And then again, you fast forward to where we are today. It's our mission to be a representation of what can be. And it's also our mission to be able to push the conversation for not only Black water safety in the Black community, in the minority communities, in communities abroad, because it's not just a Black issue. It's still one of the number one leading causes of death in our country. And there's something that, and the water is not, biased to your racial background, to your gender, to how you identify. If you aren't water safe, it could take your life. And that's something that we can prevent. So we're trying our hardest to make sure, as a mission, we're doing it not just for the Black community, but for all communities. Because at the end of the day, this is something, swimming is the one sport that actually can lead to saving your life, because it is a life skill. And it's taken a lot, to catch on. For us, we've tried to be really creative and innovative to bring more attention to the sport, especially outside of the Olympic years. You mentioned Simone Manuel in 2016. That was huge. But what about
Yeah.
2017, 2018, 2019?
Yeah.
You don't hear about swimming quite as much. It's only as of lately that it's being more and more into the mainstream, to hearing about it. And we're hoping that that continues to um, encourage everyone to take up swimming as a life skill, water safety, and not so much that they have to become competitive swimmers. That's amazing. And we have to be real. To become an Olympian, a US Olympian, where swimming is the most dominant performance for USA Olympics, it's very difficult. So we're still going to see very few minorities there. But unless we continue to get people more water safe, give more access, continue to talk about the pathways, increase that base, we will start to see more in the future.
Yeah, because obviously there's no way in the world I would have ever been a competitive swimmer. But I think it's important to know, and you're right, just having it as a hobby. Swimming is one of the least stress on your joints exercise you could possibly do. So the amount of cardio you burn in the water, you're not putting stress on your ankles, you're not putting stress on your knees. That's why you see more and more water aerobics for senior adults. So it really is a great activity. And obviously, everybody can't be a competitive swimmer. Now, I know some of our other schools in our district, we've won state championships in swimming. So we have a lot of great swimmers in our school district that may be looking to take part in a Howard University in the future. But, I think that's important. Water isn't something to be afraid of. It really is. Swimming is a great hobby and like you said, a skill that really could save your life.
Yeah, and what's really cool about it too, again, once you're more comfortable around the water and you have swimming skills and you at least know how to be water safe, you also have the opportunity as an athlete to come in. You talked about the stress on your joints. We have almost all of our programs, all of our athletic programs spends time in our pool doing water workouts. Not necessarily swimming laps up and down for all of them, but running and going through range of motion for all of our athletes, our track athletes, our golf team, our basketball players, our football players. And a lot of them say to me as the coach, they say, hey, coach, you're the reason, or the pool is the reason why I got so much better, because I was able to recover faster. I was able to be better conditioned than all of my other, competitors, whatever field or court, that they competed on. And it was really cool that that's something that's getting bigger and bigger at Howard. And I know it's been, pretty big in the athletics world as well. So even if you play ball, baseball, or football, basketball, etc., being able to spend time in the water that can be to your advantage, and it can lengthen out the amount of time that you can continue to play that sport at a high level.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, before I get to the students' questions, we got to talk about, the atmosphere you've created there in DC at y'all's meets. You're in the Northeast Conference, you're swimming against all white teams, PWIs, a lot of the schools with a lot of tradition in swimming, and Howard University almost shut down the swimming program in 2016, I believe it was, when you took over.
Yeah.
In just a matter of years, you guys had a 30-something match losing streak, and now you're winning conference championships. So, I mean, it's an incredible story. I mean, even if you want a black team, that's incredible for any type of team to have that kind of turnaround. But you literally have made the hottest ticket in DC. You're selling out every meet. So, talk about how that happened and how you built that winning mindset in a program that was a perennial loser for so many years.
Yeah, I hate that I have to correct you, but it wasn't 30. It was more like 300.
Okay.
We lost every dual meet for almost 15 years, and
Wow.
that puts us at about 0-300. It was bad. It was really bad, and it wasn't because we didn't have some really fast swimmers or some really good divers. So we didn't have enough to compete against the other PWIs, because that's all that we compete against, being the only HBCU with the program. And they have a long history of success in all the programs that we compete against, especially here in the Washington D.C. area. Georgetown University, George Washington University, they're all doing and have done incredibly. But yeah, it was bad. It was a rough period, and for that reason, you can imagine having that type of record takes a toll on any individual, no matter how great you come in and you say, all right, I'm a really good swimmer. I'm going to get better. I'm going to get better. You keep losing after losing after losing. You start to lose your mojo. You start to lose your momentum, your motivation,
Yeah,
desire. So we knew that we needed to do some things different, and we needed to do them fast. So one of the things that we really focused on is we needed to have a better continuity with our coaching staff. A lot of what happened within the swimming and diving at Howard was because we would have a new coach every year or every 2 years. So there was no continuity in the vision or the plan that the swimmers and the divers were going to have. And so when they hired me as the first head coach, that would acquire the full-time position, because everyone before me was always part-time, that was a step in the right direction. That showed a commitment that from the university and the department that they wanted to have someone to stay for, a period of time that could help rebuild. And I was very fortunate to be selected for that. The next thing we needed to do is we needed to pour into our team. We needed to meet the team where they were and help them develop. So that means we needed to pay attention to what type of environment, what type of practice plan did they have. So we worked on the strategy of, this is our practice plan. This is what we want our environment to look like when they're training. These are the resources we needed to have. And we knew that we couldn't get everything at once, so we continued to build. Part of that environment was our pool was a very nice pool, 6 lanes, 25 yards, 1-meter springboard, has a beautiful balcony that holds about 600 people in the stands. But it was drab, and it was drab, very dark, very dreary. It's already hot and humid at the pool. When the water is already cold. So we needed to change some things up. So we painted the entire natatorium. We put up some branding. We try to spruce up the place and make it more a place where the team wanted to be to train. To this day, not only does the team like being there to train, but they like being there in their off time. So during recovery periods, they're in the compression boots. They're doing, stretch and release, foam rolling. They're studying. They're eating. They're hanging out. They're doing TikTok sessions, all on the pool deck and around the pool area. So it's a really great space for them just to kind of go to and hang out with each other, even when they're not training and competing. The next thing we needed to do is we needed to try to draw people in. And that's where we really focused on our competitive atmosphere. And 3 things went into that. Number one, at all sporting environments that I've ever been, to that were the most talked about afterwards. Like, you go home and, man, that was really cool. You remember when they did this? They always had music at some form or in some place or another. You go to a basketball game, a football game, a baseball game, there were things that at each game that you went to where there was music, but there was also kind of an appeal to the audience, right? Like the 7th inning stretch in baseball, right? And when they sing the song together, it was like a connection. So for us, the solution was an on-deck DJ. And that way the DJ could read the vibe. It wasn't just, a playlist playing or, someone on the computer choosing a song. It was literally a DJ that could read the vibe in the natatorium and could choose songs that would get the energy going or would try to, get the crowd into it. And what we noticed is when the crowd was more energized, our swimmers and divers swam faster, dove better. And when they performed better, the crowd got even more energized. So we started to see an uptick in attendance and support to the point now where every single one of our swim meets is standing room only. We are probably one of the only institutions that consistently sells out a swim meet in the regular season.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because, again, we're on the campus of an HBCU. The majority of people in the stands are people of color. The people who are white Americans, et cetera, that are in the stands are usually there supporting the other team, but they can barely get into the space because it's so many of our campus community and our supporters that are there. And it's just a beautiful sight, to see it. It's an amazing thing. One of the downfalls is that now at our meets, they're so energized that the other teams are also performing better. And the coach is like, hey, we want to swim you guys here because my team is just killing it right now. I'm like, no. That's not what we wanted to happen. We don't want you guys to perform better. So we laugh about that all the time, but it's good for the sport and it's good for our kids. Mm-hmm. It's good for our supporters to see that back and forth. At the end of the day, as a competitor, you always want to take your best against the best. So, we lean into it. We really appreciate it. And the 2 other things that, we needed to do is we needed to have some food options because swim meets are long. So we didn't want to lose people in the middle of the meet because, oh my gosh, I got to eat. So we have food vendors there, food trucks, etc., selling food.
I mean,
And then,
Washington D.C. is probably the #1 food truck city in America. So that's,
oh
I
my
mean,
gosh, you can
what better
get
place for them
everything
to
here.
make money?
Yeah, you can get anything and everything here. And then the last thing was we needed to give people a product that they wanted to support, that they could get behind. So we needed to get better, and we knew that. That goes back to our training and design and our recruiting process and things like that of trying to go after the best athletes that we possibly could, and then making sure once they got here, we had a plan for them to get better. And now you see we are probably the most talked about swimming and diving program in all of collegiate sports. And
Yeah.
we still have so much farther to go to catch up to the legacy programs like Virginia or Texas or Stanford, who have consistently put out Olympians and NCAA teams and champions and things like that. So it's really cool to be in that space, to be in that conversation. And it's cool to see that we're still chasing a lot.
That's awesome. Well, I do have some questions from the students. I'll get to as many of these as I can. This first one is Harmony Williams. She's a senior, the captain of our dance team here at Velma Jackson. And she asked, how would you describe your coaching style for your teams?
Well, that's a great question, Harmony. I think for me, I'm a relationship built coach, and our coaching staff is just that. That's also part of our design and our success strategy is we wanted to make sure our coaching staff was very dynamic. So because I'm the head coach and director, I've got to be that really lay down the law. This is the standard, type of person. But then built around me, we've got our coach. We've got one coach. He's like the comedian. He's always got a joke. He's always got something to put a smile on your face, even through the hard work. Then we've got another coach. She's like the mothering coach, very nurturing. Hey, how you doing, sweetie? How's your day going? Talk to me. But she's very also stern, like, whoa, you still need to go. Then we've got another coach who's very holistic, very, very energy driven. She'll light some sage and cleanse the whole environment and things like that. And then we've got a pastor on our coaching staff. So if you get in trouble, he's like, all I can do is pray for you. And then we've got another coach who's on the pool deck who's very positive energy all the time. So my coaching style is again very relationship driven, and I know that as one coach and as an individual, I can't be everything for everybody. So I really took a lot of time in building our coaching staff so that we could have relationships and be able to have the tough talks, through different situations, so that all of our swimmers and divers would feel like they have somebody to go to.
That's awesome. This is Kentravian Young. He's a senior, just signed to play football at Southwest Mississippi Community College. And he asked, what would you tell an athlete that was afraid of the water?
It's okay to be afraid of the water. Fear is one of those things that is a natural human, kind of feeling. But you've got to commit to making sure that you continue to try to overcome that fear. In life, we can't be paralyzed by the fears that we have and try to avoid them. The best thing we can do with any fear is try to find ways to overcome them. And if that's the water, or if that's a fear of anything else, a fear of being on stage, a fear of performance, you still have to find ways to be able to overcome them. Specifically for the water, the more you're around it, and the more you're around it in a safe, comfortable space, then the better your chances of being able to take one step at a time. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. So taking that first step will absolutely help with any fear, especially fear of water.
Absolutely. Well, I got time for two more. This is DeKayla Williamson. She's a sophomore, one of our cheerleaders here at Velma Jackson. And she asked, what was your biggest inspiration to become a coach?
You know what? I think it was the coaches and the teachers that I had. Teachers are coaches and coaches are teachers. It's just a different level of disciplines that they go through. And I was very blessed to have some amazing teachers and some amazing coaches who poured into me. I think what turned the table for me to really invest in coaching being my career was I wanted to be a part of people's lives in their development. I wanted to be a piece of the puzzle that could help others strive to be more healthy, to be more productive, and to be developed. So, definitely those teachers and those coaches. Shout out to all of them. Too many to name on the Zoom, but they know who they are.
That's awesome. All right, I got one more, and I love this one. This is David Ford. He's a junior member of our football team and our bowling team here at Velma
Okay.
Jackson, and he asked, "How does it feel knowing that you had such a huge part in the history of African American athletes?"
That's a great question. And sometimes my staff or some of my athletes, and of course my wife and family, they ask me, how does it feel? When we won conference championships last year, we were runner up in both the men's and the women's this year, which is the first time in program history that our women's program has performed so high. It I'm such a go, go, go person. I don't often take enough time to feel, to unpack, because I'm already trying to do more. When I do get a chance to try to sit back and unpack those feelings, it's just extreme pride, and it's met with the same amount of there's more, because it's not over, and just because we've done one thing or we've achieved some things, I know that there's so much more that the good Lord wants me to be able to do and to achieve and to pour into this world. I'm just trying to be obedient and keep working at it. So there's a lot of pride, but there's also a lot of of work that I feel like has to continue to get done.
That's awesome. Now we're almost out of time, and we thank you so much for taking some time for us. But just a couple things before we go. First of all, if we got any tennis or swimmers in our area that are looking for a place to find a great fit, I think Howard would be a great place for them to consider. And I think they should send you some film or something of them to get that recruiting process started.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. The best thing you can do is at any stage and age, you can start as early as 12, 13, is to start to research the programs that you're interested in, start to reach out to those coaches. At a certain point, those coaches can start to respond to you and have recruiting conversations. But being a college athlete is one of the most fulfilling things that I've ever had a chance to take part in. And it's a joy to see the fulfillment that the student athletes that I have an opportunity to work with gain from being a part of a family, in their sport, and, striving for greatness, because for something that's even bigger than each individual. So absolutely, get on that, start reaching out.
Now the last thing I heard you with a quote one time where you said one of the mottos of your program is "Don't count the laps, but make the laps count." And even if you're not a
That's right.
swimmer or have no desire to ever be a swimmer, that is such a great quote for the obstacles these young people are going to face in life. I've got a room full here with me of young, intelligent African American kids that, and I said before we went to lunch today that they don't understand the things that people before them went through. A lot of people, their grandparents, their parents went through some serious struggles that I can't even imagine to give them the opportunities they have today. So making the most of those opportunities after high school, no matter whether they become an athlete or not, whether they go to college or not, is so important. And with it being Black History Month, with the type of history you're making there in Howard, I couldn't think of a better person to really explain that. So as they get ready to move from high school to college or their next step, what are some ways that they can make those laps count when those laps start coming?
Yeah, that's something we say all the time, because too often we get in the mindset that we're only focused on just getting through something, whatever it is. For us as swimmers, it's getting through the laps, and not getting the quality, not getting the most out of every single lap. There's a thing where we don't want to swim just for 10 hours to try to get better. We want to get the most quality out of the time that we do have, and that's in life as well. Because the value of the present is you don't get it back. You don't get that opportunity back. So being able to be in the moment, taking full advantage of the present moment. We've got another saying that we use, and it's an acronym for WIN. What's important now? Even though we've
Wow.
got goals, things that are out there, we want to make sure that we're taking care of the now, being very present in the moment, focusing on how do I get better in this space. And sometimes it can be very simple. It could be like, I'm just going to wake up earlier to start my homework, or I'm going to wake up, or so I don't have to be rushed to go to school. I'm going to take care of this task way ahead of time so that I don't feel pressured or stressed when the deadline comes around. Taking care of what's important now when you're on the playing field, or you're at a competition. you can't get too caught up on what happened. You can't look too far into the future about what might happen, because the past is past. There's nothing you can do about it. The future hasn't been decided or determined yet, but you can focus on right now, centering yourself and being able to, what's important now? What can I focus on? How can I get the best quality out of this moment? And then one step at a time, better, better, and better. You can achieve greatness in all things. And I think that's something that, especially for where we are now in this world and how information and the world moves so fast paced, if we just slow down and focus on where we are in this exact moment, we can do even better.
Man, that is incredible, and I'm gonna steal both of those from you, so I hope that's all right. But we thank you so much for taking some time. Just such an incredible story, and I encourage everybody to look up the clips all over YouTube. Just such cool things going on there at Howard, all the way from our nation's capital, the head coach of swimming and diving and tennis at Howard University, all the way from Washington D.C. Nic Askew, we thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. It's been a joy being with you guys, and best of luck.
Absolutely, thank you so much.